Hey guys, it's Jess, your go-to Street Fighter bestie, and we're here taking a look at FED's reaction and overview feedback to the K-pop challenge. I'm here trying to catch up on some reviews from people who have participated in the franchise, whether it's Street Woman Fighter Vietnam or Tricks with Prime Kings for Street Man Fighter, and then also with Bada with Street Woman Fighter Season 2, just to kind of round it out, give us some overall thoughts, and really just enjoy hearing different perspectives and commentating through that together. So I'm ready. I hope you guys are. Let's go.
Rồi chúng mình sẽ reaction cái bản đầu tiên của team USA là Motif với team Japan là Ojo Gang. Ojo Gang. Team Japan Ojo Gang. Hip hop mission. Còn kiểu mỗi đội có nhạc intro tên của đội rồi. Minami của tôi. Tôi đã từng học workshop của chị em rồi. Kadokawa. Ui giời. Đây là Motif à? Đây là Ojo. Không Ojo viên. Ý nó là Motif phải cover cái này này. Rồi. Nhiều đoạn này đã gọi là đây này, Lin. Có một cái em ôi. Ui. Sao cái gì trời? Chị chắc là kiểu cái vai của nó sẽ rất là hợp với chị chân chất. Chị quá chất. Chị là số 1 và là Kadokawa mà. Hay lady. Chị quá chất luôn đấy. Trong nhóm này tôi đã từng học mỗi shop của 4 người trong này rồi. Đây. Xinh nhỉ? Đây là Koga học rồi. Minami học rồi. Ai nữa nhỉ? Ibuki học rồi. 4 người rồi. Cái chị còn một chị thì một trang tóc dài. Đây là Motif choreo này. Kiểu hip hop. Nhưng mà các chị vẫn giết cái gái có visual. Cả nhóm luôn. Visual luôn. Chặt. Thích nhất chính Minami. Đừng kỹ này. Nhìn phải vẫn chất quá. Nhạc hợp ngay cái mở đầu thế. Hợp lý. Ôi dồi ôi. Nó kiểu nguy hiểm ấy. Đúng vai, nó kiểu đúng vai. Bắt đầu rồi nó cũng mặt nó thật clean, rất là clean. Đấy, tay nhá. Nét tay.
Yes.
Nhìn nó rất là chặt chẽ nhau.
It's kind of a standard for the show. It's something that really helps people be able to see what you're doing for sure. It's something FED did very, very well.
Chị này có dáng, chị này có sắc, vậy đẹp. Hình rồi động tác gọn gàng, hình rất là hướng.
Hey baby.
Kiểu cũng rất là vai đấy,
Hey baby.
Nói chung là cả nhóm visual đẹp. Đây là cái nhận dạng. Còn hai chị này thôi, một chị old school, một chị gì kiểu new school. Phải có ghi viên tự kia, đằng này nó cũng đã là nghe rồi. Nhưng mà sang cái kia là ghi cơ. Ai old school nhỉ? Hợp ấy. Còn này là đội kia rồi. Chắc là 5 lần rồi em ơi. Lần 5 lần rồi. Lần thứ 5 rồi. Thì cũng phải kiểu
Right. So they're talking about probably the amount of times they had to shoot that part. They're like, ooh, right? It's interesting they didn't play it all the way through. They started over. And I'll never let you go. Take a better love a flower till you love me. No?
Tại vì cái kỹ thuật cá nhân nó đã rất là ok rồi đấy. Ta nhảy cái đoạn như thế.
I understand that. I would say they have the same amount of cleanliness that Ojo Gang does, because if you actually like itemize through who is doing what at what part, yes, you have more of an authenticity coming out of Ibuki, but Ibuki is one person out of like 7 or 8, right? So that's I find this very interesting that I'm watching them watch this, right? It's so funny, like it's like Inception, right? Because I don't know if they're operating out of a bias or not, or what. I just have to watch more. They're more into old school hip hop. Like they're more in like it's like hip hop. The hip hop foundation is more prevalent. You know what I mean? And you see how it's built and varied versus seeing hybrid, right? So I'm curious about what they're gonna say about Motive, because I did hear already that they rank them very low. But hearing, for me, it all goes back to, if you can justify it, then that's something that I can definitely respect. But if it's more of like a biased perspective because of who you've learned from, because for me, I know more people from Ojo Gang than I do Motive. Even though I'm American, it's looking at, there's like a whole nother criteria that's in play. Just like when I saw FED go against SoFire, there's a criteria that's established. They received the same amount of courtesy of a watch and an analysis, which they have seen. They have commented underneath my video for that. So they have seen that. So it's very interesting kind of hearing what they're going to say here, right? It doesn't hit the vibe. They were very excited to see Kyoka and Minami and everybody. They were thrown off by the fits. Hold on, what are they saying? Let me see. I touched on Kashime with Motive too, that some of the fits work in certain sections and they may not work in other cases. And I touched on with HHI, that is something that can be factored into your score. But this isn't HHI either, but like in a choreographic context. But they did. You know what? Here's something I'm picking up on. Because they were very reactive to Ojo Gang, it makes it hard for me to be receptive to what they're saying here as much. So like, remember, I'm human too, and I can be pushed and pulled in different directions. Even though I try to be as much of an advocate for trying to be in the middle ground, I can get pushed and pulled that way, right? So that's something. This is why I try not to react, because it can lead or guide and sway, and it makes it harder to justify because I had emotions that show different. Does that make sense? Or like, I don't know. I think that's what I'm picking up on here, of how it's making me feel, which is fine. Remember, I'm a human at the end of the day too. So I can, you know, however, it just depends on what they say. I think if it needs to be touched on, I don't know. Let's see. It is because of how she chose to flow around, and I felt the opposite.
Nhìn mấy chị này giống nhau nhỉ? Trông cứ giống nhau ấy. Nhưng mà này nó không chắc chắn lắm nhỉ? Này nó cũng không chắc chắn lắm. Cái liều này người ta cảm thấy có thể người ta cảm thấy là mình do ấy, cho nên là nó không khít. Đúng rồi. Nhìn nó không khít. Với cả cái bộ động tác nó theo cái style old school. Đây là cái mạng người ta dựng vào bên cạnh copy. Áp phải. Đây này. Đây cái đoạn này cho ghi bên kia là còn làm còn đẹp hơn. Chắc hơn. Yêu ca bây giờ. Logan sinh năm 2003. Ôi trời ơi, đã từng Red Bull đúng không? Đấy. The Lab. Trước khi World là đi phía cả The Lab. nói sẽ cảm nhận hơn nhỉ. Chị này kiểu Tây nhưng mà là nó cái kiểu là không bao giờ nghe nhạc K-pop á. Nhưng mà các bạn ấy OG rồi, bọn mình thì nghe nhiều mà. Với cả người cũng nhắc nhau. Nó cũng là một cái ấy. Thế là tiếng là chị nhảy thôi. Đấy, lần thứ ba ha. Như bên Ojo ấy, là mọi người hỏi rất nhiều, mọi người diễn ca. Không vai. Cái nhép đấy nó là cái việc cảm nhận của bản thân ấy. Nếu mà cảm nhận thì cho đúng rồi, nhép được không? Cái này nó trông nó hơi bị đuối. Với cả mặt cầu rộng quá, mà nhảy ví dụ nó không mặt cầu rộng này phải nhảy khoảng 200% lực ấy. Đúng rồi. Nhưng mà cái việc mà kiểu tự nhiên mặc đồ khác thế là mình đã cảm thấy là nó hơi đấy, một chị này cũng mặc áo thấy không có áo trắng không thì áo hoodie nhưng mà là áo hoodie hai chị mặc áo hoodie à, nó không có ý nghĩa gì. Hay là vì lỗi trang phục ý là cái mắt mình nhìn nó thì kiểu nó áo hơi lạc nhau. Là sao lại áo chị này không cả hai chị này đây này. Sao lại chị bên phải? Ý là có nhảy BT Girl không? Nó cũng không có đoạn làm kiểu đôi đôi. Với cả mặt mấy chị này mặt chắc là nó cũng còn trẻ. Mình đoán đấy, nhóm này mọi người cũng trẻ. Nên là cái kiểu diễn của mọi người nó cũng ngây thơ à. Biết mỗi trong nhóm này biết mỗi BT Girl với cả nhóm là Mali, nhóm trưởng á. Hai người đấy còn đâu thì không đấy, còn nhìn mọi người diễn kiểu nó rất là ngây thơ. Đây giống kiểu Andre đợt mùa 2 ấy nhỉ. Không ăn là highlight, không là nhấn. Ba bài đang đều như nhau, nó không rõ vai. Đấy xong cái mở đầu như này. Thế là nó không hợp với nhạc lắm. Rõ vai. Thu là giống cả cái tính chó. Ojo Gang. Là cái đó là ba bài nó gọi là mood nó rất là, nhưng mà một bài rất là mood nó mình muốn xem tiếp. Tiếp theo sẽ là đội Japan Re.
I mean, you guys probably saw the look on my face. That was a little hard for me to listen through. I mean, you guys, I'll leave it to what is it? I'll just leave it to, I have an analysis of it. I touched on many different things, so they have every right to their perspective. So it's very interesting, some things that they touched on.
Team Korea Bumsup.
Sorry, there is something I do have to touch on. So they were saying that, what is it? Visually, it's a bit distracting. Those were mountain climbers. No, it wasn't. Oh my god. No, those were farmer variants. Those two over there on the right, they're in hoodies. Right, so they come from the lens where they wear the same thing. For me, I was taught through Hip Hop International, I don't know if they're still like this, rules and regulations, that it is preferred that costuming is to be done in a color-coded manner, in the sense where, like, you're in the same color family, but you're not wearing the exact same thing. But a lot of crews tend to wear the exact same thing because it helps in your synchronicity score. So what they're touching on was something I actually was taught to look at from an opposite standpoint, where it's if you want it to have more of an authentic appeal, that everyone needs to dress within the family of, like, the color palette to rep your crew, but you all have your own distinct style. So that's why that didn't bother me in that sense. But also, depending on the style that you're justifying, I did touch on their fits in the very first section because of the whacking justification that we saw for the copy. So that's why I was disconnected from that, because I was trained differently. Okay, so they're touching on how they were saying that this track, that Asians may just know it more than Westerners, but this whole section's in English. So Westerners should actually have a better advantage because this whole said I will be back, but I'll never let you go. Pick a petal off a flower till you love me. No, the entire formation and composition of this section is because I know English and I know the song very well. I saw the wordplay choices within the formations and the dynamics. Did they see it? I don't know. They didn't touch on it, so it's really just whatever they're showing us. They're saying that it was distracting or that they didn't have an accent point for me. I appreciated the fact that I got to see pick a petal off a flower. Then, I don't know, maybe going with white, it helps influence being a daisy. I don't know. They look pretty young, and then they're touching on their age. For me, age is... I mean, I'm assuming everyone's older than 18 because of the hours that you pull on an Mnet show. I don't know what the laws are in Korea, but I know in America we have child labor laws, so you have to be careful about age and how you work somebody depending on how old or young they are. I never really use age as a reason for whether a crew has experience or not. I think it comes with the quality of what you've chosen to spend your years on. So I'm guessing this group is still quite young. That's why their expressions look innocent. Some of them do look, I mean, younger, but I only know the big girl and the leader Marley, which is absolutely fine. I know the same amount of people that they do on Ojo Gang as well. Set out, you see that? And then it never lets you go and go, never let you go. Like that's a direct wordplay for musicality on this part right here. This feels like they paid attention to the track quite well, right? Yeah, pick a petal from the flower. She dropped. Pick a petal, like she was a petal picked. I don't know if they saw that. There's no highlight moment. No standout section. That section was a straight up standout because of the musicality of wordplay. It would be very similar to me watching a Vietnamese-based choreography, which I have on the show, right? But I missed a really iconic wordplay moment that could have contributed to the dynamic or texture choice that was made, right? It's the same thing. So I'm going to extend them the same amount of courtesy that I was extended for. I may not understand what I'm looking at because of I don't have a language, like a cultural awareness to language, and but also this is street dance. This is street woman fighter on all fronts. So street dance is still that priority for me that I'm going to look at. So, but other things can always be looked and adjust. Noticing vibe shifts. And that whole section was a house section, which felt very different than the other section before, which had more of the polyrhythm, choreographic motive, fingerprint from Marley, but man. They're allowed to think what they want to think.
Mình muốn xem tiếp. Tiếp theo sẽ là đội Japan RHTokyo, Team Korea Bumsup. Bumsup là gì? Chỉ là ngày mà tất cả là team của Korea thôi. Nên là tương tự luôn. Đúng. Bên này thì sẽ là tất cả các leader của Hàn Quốc, nhưng mà biết đâu kiểu ai cũng giỏi thì ai nghe ai, đúng không? Còn bên này là người ta đã có một cái cách làm việc tư tưởng.
So that's what they're thinking already going in. I wonder if they're going to vote for RHTokyo. So they're... But respectfully, they didn't have any issue with Ojo Gang, even though they're a thrown together project team for the show. That's why we have to be mindful with verbiage, but also it could be a translation thing. we do have to touch on the lip syncing part. So, I'm so curious about how other countries are, because what I'm hearing here is in the Vietnam scene that lip syncing equates to enjoyment, whereas lip syncing in my neck of the woods, it shows a reliability on familiarity of the track and not on your ability as a dancer. This is a dance competition, not a musical theater competition. In the studio world, that's always a hot debate. Do you lip sync in the musical theater category or do you not? Because musical theater, it tailors more towards the Broadway sense where you sing and dance at the same time. And that's really, in my neck of the woods, the only place where that is actually the appropriate thing to do. Lip syncing can be great if you work it to your advantage. You don't need to do it, right? Royal would do it in their mega cruise, right? Where you would have this moment, but they don't do it all the time. Like, that's not an equivalent to enjoyment in a lot of ways. Sometimes you can. For me, I actually think it's the tongue. It's a weird thing, but that's more of my indicator than lip syncing. But yeah. It does. I can understand that. Audio was cut off. in the back. That's such a vibe. Too idolish. I mean, it is a K-pop challenge, so I understand that. That felt very SM with that leg. She's cute. That was cute. It said, we ain't in it. This is, so let's get a little nitpicky. I mean, they did ask why the different outfits. Royal family, I mean, they actually are ones that tend to wear the same outfit, if I'm being honest. So them wearing different, I have heard that the teams get assigned fits, or their fit is, you know, done by a stylist or stuff. Like, I've heard things about this situation. So that's what I find. I do find that interesting. Like, did all teams get styled? Because then if that's the case, then critiquing on costume would be difficult, because you would actually be talking to the stylist, not the crew. But we don't really know that information, so that's actually kind of hard, right? Moda's wearing their own gear, though, which is why... Interesting they said that. Royal family, the girls were saying that their shoes were slippery. This is what I've heard people were saying about them.
Nhưng mà mình thấy là tại vì căn bản mình chưa thấy có một cái tổ hợp nào để được nhiều hẳn. Cái tổ hợp nghĩa là nghĩa là đi di chuyển được rất nhiều nhưng mà cứ đang nhảy một động tác thì lại đi luôn. Nhưng mà chưa có một cái tổ hợp là dài. Nên là đấy cũng lý do trí nhớ của mình. Hồi đấy ấn tượng cho người khác. Cái đầu tiên này rất là hay. Đây là cái mặt người rất không đều. Có một cái chị đầu tiên này là bóng đúng rồi. Với cả biết sao không? Cái mái tóc này nó che cái ánh mắt của mọi người. Đúng rồi. Nó che cái ánh mắt của mọi người.
I mean, for a camera, like a video performance, I understand that. Okay, Ariel. Wait, is it off? Hold on. She said the formation was off. I mean, it is in the spacing over the stage left side, yeah. It's very minor, but yeah, very, very minor. Sorry if it feels like I'm not really contributing much. It's like I'm processing through what they're talking through, right? And I'm very curious how they're going to respond to AG Squad, because what I've noticed with the first two teams is, well, let me put it this way. When I started doing YouTube, I understood what I was getting myself into to a certain extent, which is why I started when I did. I'm in my late 20s, and I'm very thankful I started when I did and not earlier, because of a lot of hard lessons learned of how you do have to be responsible for what you bring to the table, right? So I understand with every analysis that I do, especially when it's pertaining to rankings or competitions, I have to be held responsible for what I say, right? Especially if it's hurtful for people. And I'm not projecting any of this onto them, but I'm just saying for my personal, how I conduct myself on YouTube, that is how I've gone about reacting. That's how I've gone about commentating and analyzing, is everything that I say, I have to be able to, what's the best way to word it? I have to be able to take ownership when I'm wrong, you know, or when I'm emotionally driven in a space, right? Like being able to take ownership of that. And there have been times outside of YouTube where I've had to learn the very, very hard way recently of there's a time and place to say certain things, right? Or to bring up certain topics. And so I've been very blessed and thankful to have a community like on Patreon where we're able to have discussions or build relationships with groups like K-pop groups. That's why I marathon them. So I have the privilege of understanding context. So if I do have to approach something constructively, I have all of this background information that makes it more refined, and it really does tailor to seeing a group where they are, not out of assumptions of what I don't know, right? So here in this case, what I've noticed with FED is the first two lineups, they've had really hype, excited responses with one out of the two teams with both sides, and those happen to be the teams that they went with. I'm curious how they're going to be with AG Squad. Are they going to fangirl, which you are absolutely allowed to do that. I, come from the lens on when we rank things, maintain consistency of what kind of emotions you bring to the table for groups. For me, every single team did well and have skill sets that can set them up for success. And I remember what I said for who I think is going to take it. It's still going to be dependent on the challenge and the context and how they feel that day and what we're given in that time frame, right? I still feel that way, and I'm going to feel that way until the show finishes up, right? One episode at a time. So I think that's kind of been something I've been trying to navigate through with this video in particular, is seeing them not have or presenting an equal response to both teams of each matchup. So it's hard for me to relate or understand a lot of their feedback that they give, but I understand a lot of what they're giving. Does that kind of make sense? So I think that's kind of why, like, my brain is trying to, I'm in a lot of processing right now. So I'm sorry if it just looks like I'm coasting on the video. No, I think I'm processing it alongside you guys if you haven't seen this before either.
Chị bảo là ý là chị xem ba này chị nhớ nhất mỗi cái đoạn không có định đoạn đầu này và cái ngựa người đấy là hai cái tổ nhất có gì mà đứng trong em cảm giác AG Squad 뉴질랜드 로얄 더 뛰어난 월드크루에게 OG là gì? Đấy, bảo nhà đôi như vậy như kiểu đôi người chúng ta đang nhỉ?
Yeah, do you guys...
Thông minh, quá thông minh, vì cái đội hình đầu tiên nó đã kiểu cảm giác là nó trong rất là thiện nha. Nó hợp và nó còn kiểu để mọi người rõ nhìn.
Yeah, so do you guys see what I'm picking up on here? And I think that's what I remember. They don't have to do what I do. That's fine. And they have empathy, like they said we're being viewers of the space, and they're allowed their perspective and opinion, absolutely. Just like how I'm trying to adjust to how they're going about doing this, I know there's people that have had to adjust to how I analyze material. I know there's been people who probably completely disagree emotionally, like have an emotional, visceral response to my constructiveness. I've had that before. So I'm not going to sit here and say that everything I said was correct or that they're wrong or whatever. It's a situation where this is, if anything, it promotes discussion, or it helps me be able to check myself as to, okay, as a human, why is this coming across in a certain way to me? And what can I learn from this? Because that, at the end of the day, you can learn from anything, regardless if you 100% agree or not. Do I agree with all their choices? 2 out of 3, there's some notes that they gave with motive that for me, I'm like, I wish that we viewed it a little differently or extended a different perspective on that. But also, I'm a native English speaker. And just like people can have a sense of bias towards their country, people can naturally assume that I have a bias because of my own country. I understand my culture more than somebody who doesn't come from America. And so seeing how Americans operate in the show, I'm naturally going to empathize with more. Like Marley and Ruthie, how they react in this space, it feels like they're my spirit animal. I love watching them. Because, like, as people in this space, because it's like what Marley says, I'm like totally agree with. If Mnet were to take my words and like do this with them, which is what they've been doing with everybody in the show, that would be how they would portray me. Probably even worse, because I haven't said nice things about Mnet and format anyway. But my point being, though, that everyone's going to have biases that come into play, or you're going to have preferences. And that's absolutely okay. It all boils down to how can you express it and how can you justify it to where everybody gets to grow and learn in the process. For me, I want it to be where we get to shine light on the beauty and the art of dance and what history and culture and styles and and just insights on different avenues that I've had the privilege of learning through to promote really interesting discussions that can help us all grow as people, right? Anyway, so all that to say, that's what I find interesting here is like learning how they're approaching this is very different than how I do, but that doesn't negate it at all, right? So don't spoil it. I haven't watched it yet. Ah, so some of them, yeah. So they've been seeing a few of these already. Also, that was a wordplay choice on Throwback. And people were talking about the Korean wordplay that was happening and how they recognized it. They said that talent plus experience equals quality. And a lot of times that can come across because they didn't mention that across with many other teams. Royal Family has talent and experience. Now, do they have a different avenue of experiences? Yes. But also Royal, like Tisha, like I've mentioned before, I think I really feel like Mnet did not do the best in stewarding Royal Family's videos in the intros because they were showing a lot of like older Royal Family stuff that a lot of them weren't actively a part of, right? Now, they could have shown bubblegum. They could have shown other avenues, but they didn't. They just showed the Royal Family clips. They didn't show like the whole palace threshold of like the other teams going up. It's not like they couldn't be in it, right? I think it's just, I think it was a mix of like Tisha's done Skeleton Crew for Rihanna for the Super Bowl. Like we touched on that, but a little too late, right? Like that wasn't, we're not showing them what they're doing, you know, like what they're known for. We were just showing what makes the Royal Family brand what it is, which is further incentivizing people to view them in that way, which isn't fair to them, right? Just like if you look at every single crew, they all have different things that Mnet has done that's part of the show and the drama of it. Drama, mama. Where they've manipulated footage, manipulated verbiage, manipulated so many different things with what kind of calls are made or who's matched up with who and what songs are selected and how people are interacting in the space and the music. All of those things are manipulated because they have the privilege to do that, just like they're manipulated on their show. To where it's everybody got the short end of the stick in some capacity. And if they haven't, they're going to at some point, you know? So it's interesting hearing some of this kind of feedback, you know, like I said, where it feels very tailored to one team, but you can let that feedback be something that is reflective of all the teams in different ways, right? Is that Khalees? Is that her name? I remember saying Khalees is really pretty, especially here. Like she's, like how she existed. Purple's a great color on her. Oh, you know what? Where's Danica? Oh, she's right there. Found her. Okay. She's on the stage right side. Oh, sorry. You know, I was so busy watching this, I wasn't reading what they were saying. I'm so sorry. We gotta go back. There is a point I want to make, though, with the lip syncing where it was placed for AG's squad, tailoring to what they were talking about. So I wanted to touch on the lip syncing section. So for them, they're saying lip syncing equates to enjoyment, where it doesn't look like AG Squad really lip synced until that whiplash, and it made it its own moment, right? And that to me felt like a very appropriately placed lip syncing moment because it was part of choreography versus for me, I've actually had students lip sync, and that was an ism that they do, because sometimes whenever you have an adrenaline ism, is what I've called it, some dancers wander their eyes, some look to the floor, some of their arms turn into noodles, some get really, really stiff. That's kind of the most common one I've noticed. And then some of them are going to lip sync, some, you know, their tongue does weird things, some have their mouth open. It's all, I equate lip syncing to an ism of adrenaline that helps make you feel more comfortable in an uncomfortable space. Like it's a form of trying to promote comfort for yourself, right? Just like resetting, because it's a comfortable posture and position that you implicitly have trained in. That makes you feel like safer to pursue something from that position versus taking a risk and exploring and working through that skill set, right? So that's why when they were talking about lip syncing, it's, for me, from a cultural standpoint, we don't really do that unless it's a part of a workplace choice, which is exactly what you see here with AG Squad.
Anh nói là cái sự chắc chắn, cái sự đồng đều về cái biểu cảm, là về cái động tác, nên cái cảm giác cảm giác cho mình muốn xem, và kiểu nó đội này là cũng là cái đội mà kiểu nhiều người ghép lại đấy, chứ không phải là kiểu nhưng mà nó có một cái là khi tập với nhau kiểu không phải là cùng một đội ấy, nhưng mà cái người biết đạo ấy truyền được cho mọi người biết là cái đàn này ý đồ như thế nào ấy, nó quan trọng. Thế nên tất cả mới làm được cùng với nhau như thế. Là phim này thì có rất nhiều khoảnh khắc mà tất cả người làm cái gì rất là chắc không người lơi cái máy tính mấy làm cái nhiều cái sự điểm đấy, cái người ta làm rất là ra rồi mặt làm nó nhìn cách chi rất đàn bà, thế rồi nhìn rất cách chi trông cách rất là gừng kiểu củ gừng đấy. Nào xếp hạng 6 độ, xếp hạng 6 độ thầy về qua tiếp theo, bởi vì nó rất là đầy đủ hai từ những cái góc quanh, từ cái đồng đều của động tác là khuôn mặt, động tác này biểu diễn mặt này, và cái sự chắc chắn này là cái thước người bằng nhau luôn, nhưng mà nó bằng nhau, không ai gọi là bị lệch ra khỏi hình luôn, và cũng không có một cái lỗi nào, đúng không? Không thiếu lỗi nào. Đấy, quay 5 lần như một đấy, quay 5 lần như một nhá. Số 2 là RHTokyo chất quả.
I love that that's what they took from that. Was like, ooh, a roller coaster, right?
Nhưng mà nói chung là vẫn có một số lỗi, một số lỗi vẫn nhìn thấy, có một cái đoạn cái chích bên tay trái của mình đấy, nhìn rõ đấy. Thì nói chung là cũng là do tội thì nhưng mà cái chất từ trong máu ấy là cái điều mà không ai có thể gọi là phơi được, không ai có thể cover được, và cover Queen là xấu quá, sự luôn. Số 3 là đội Ojo Gang, là cả đội Gang, Minami. Chúng tôi đến từ Kadokawa, cả năm chúng tôi đều học là cách út xong một cái chị này là Minami này,
I'm appreciative if they at least recognize that too.
Không biết là có chưa hơn mà mình đã xem là bạn ấy ở trong Street Dance China rồi. Rất ghê luôn. Ghê luôn. Quá khủng. Kinh số 4.
You know what? I don't know if people know this, but I know it was Uwa and Kilo, right? They did a whole little wheelchair set situation, and they got their spot taken from them by, it was a Poppin'. Oh my god! You guys know exactly. Hopefully, if you've watched Street Dance China, you know what I'm talking about. One of the poppers, he freestyled to the same track and used the wheelchair and was able to like claim their spot, and they got eliminated from a lot of the videos that got referenced. So I didn't realize that was them until somebody pointed it out. I didn't know they were on Street Dance China, but I remember saying Kello, and he's with Katakawa Dreams like Manami is. So he's been one of the most used aces with Katakawa, and every single time I think he's been used, he has won ace of that respective match, which is the epitome of don't fix what ain't broke, right? So, but yeah, I think one thing, I love seeing Manami here, but I'm really sad that we didn't get to see her as much in the Katakawa Dreams rounds, but that's okay. Maybe we'll see her in the championship. I don't know if the dates align, but...
Tại vì là vấn đề là trong cây thì nên là giống nhau hết. Những cái đoạn mà ví dụ tay dùng tay cái thứ như chích cái thứ này thì nên là phải là tay nó phải giống nhau, một là ngắn hẳn hay là hai là
I understand that. I think for me, the reason why this didn't really bother me as much is because the material that was used even on the arms is like bodycon. It's attached to the body. Like it's like free flowing. It's not a different texture or textile we're operating in. So these kinds of situations for me doesn't, bother me at all. Like I feel like it bothered them, which is fine. They have their preferences. Absolutely fine. I get that.
Nhìn cái mông nó rất là cong, xong rồi kiểu nó tôn ra và vẫn có một số với cả cái tóc nữa, cái tóc bị xé cả mặt vùng mặt một mọi người cũng há to và diễn cũng rất là ok. Cái mặt là cái rất là quan trọng khi mà tương tác với camera. Em thấy cái team duy nhất mà dùng thả tóc mà không bị ảnh hưởng là team đây. Còn đâu thì là công nhận nhất, còn đâu thì là bếp không hết, bếp mắc là Lâm My. Mình rất là sợ mình sẽ mắc là Lâm My. Đấy, xong rồi đến đội gì nhỉ? Đội Bumsup là đội gì? Bumsup là đội là các chị cũng ai thì cũng ghê, cá nhân ai cũng ghê, nhưng mà tại vì trong có thể là mọi người kiểu không tập với nhau nhiều ấy, cho nên là nhìn nó cái năng lượng, tại vì cái style nó khác nhau mà, style nhảy của mọi người khác nhau, người thì sexy, tại vì căn bản là bọn mình cũng xem đội Korea trước, nó mạnh quá rồi, cho nên là xem sang Bumsup thì lại bị kỳ vọng hơn.
Now the question is, are we supposed to? The answer is no. You're not supposed to have these expectations that somebody has to meet that are going to be unequal to the next person. But also remember, they said that they were viewers watching it. They're nitpicking to their own preference. So I have to remember that. We all have to remember that.
Cuối cùng là mua tiếp là có Mali này, có Mali với cả có Logan này, biết rồi, ở đâu mọi người mình không rõ, nhưng mà cái mua tiếp đấy nó là cái dance studio, dance studio, nó không phải là không biết với cả nếu mà là best way mà lùi ra thì thôi luôn, trong khi là chống lỗ hết luôn thì là bùng lỗ, nhưng mà là
gosh, now it's out.
Rồi, hẹn mọi người ở tập tập 1 nhé. Tạm biệt.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess in general we disagreed on a few things, and that's okay. I mean, it's just learning for me to absorb what can I learn from, you know, watching a crew from a different country who's experienced being on the show, what they were looking at. And I think all that's mighty fine. So I'm very curious about y'all's thoughts. I'm sorry this one felt a little bit more, I was more quiet and absorbing, which I think that's okay sometimes too. But yeah, you guys know me, I know you, I'm Jess, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.